Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Oakes with the smartsocial.com podcast. Boy, am I excited today to be with you because we've got a really awesome topic and a great speaker. Now, you guys know that I'm live from Los Angeles, California, but we have, if you could imagine even better weather than Los Angeles, even better weather, where would that be? That's right, San Diego, California. I've got an awesome guest here today. Before we get to him, I want to remind you what smartsocial.com does. Our mission is to keep kids safe on social media so they can someday shine online. We believe in a balanced approach. We want to make sure that you understand that taking devices away from kids is not always the answer, but rather a balanced approach so the kids get to have fun a little longer, but they also understand wisdom and values around all these tools and this unlimited access to the internet that we all have. Boy, do we have a lot in store for you here today. All right. So also, you can click the links below to download our free app, Smart Social, in the iTunes and Android App Store, and it allows you to get access to my staff of, I've got 5 people on staff, and all we do is create amazing blog posts for you guys to make sure you know the latest threats. We've got over 100 good and bad apps that we educate people on all the time. So it's sponsored by our free app. That's awesome. Click the link below to download it. All right, now in today's interview, I'm so excited and honored to have David DiGiorgio. Here's something awesome about him. He's a TEDx speaker. You can go to YouTube and Google his name, TEDx speaker. But also, just as importantly, and maybe even more importantly, he's an author of a book called Being Unapologetic. You can click the link below to go to his landing page to buy his book, learn more about him, and see some of his tactics. David, welcome to the video and audio.
Thank you. Great to see you, Josh.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. It's San Diego. That's fantastic. I love San Diego. But let's talk about, you've got 5 simple and practical ways to improve your mental wellness. I love this because this topic is really a big part of our company. You know, David, we believe every kid in 3rd grade, and I want you to disagree with me. Every kid in 3rd grade should start with our safety modules that we at Smart Social believe in, teaching them how to drive safely on social media before they're on it. And in 4th grade, really mental health, we're diving into that. And it could start at 0 years old, but a lot of people aren't ready for that. So we say at 4th grade. And then in 5th grade, it's how to Google yourself, and then how to start building in middle school, 6th through 8th, build a positive private portfolio, and then launch it in high school with how to get you into a career, college, and show you your self-worth with skills that you love and put it online. So what you are talking about today, to me, is so important, and I'm thankful that you're here. All right, just a quick background. I know you're my enthusiasm. I know it's a lot.
I love it.
That's fantastic. Tell us just really quickly about you and about the book, and then I want to dive into your tips.
Yeah, so gosh, I am the son of immigrant parents. I'm originally Canadian from Toronto, which is why I wrote the book Being Unapologetic, because I got tired of saying sorry for everything, frankly. And that's my story, and that's what I'm sticking to. I originally am a composer, musical theater producer, director. I had my own successful theater production company for family entertainment in Toronto for several years. While I was doing that and pitching television shows at night, by day, I decided to become a head of a high school music department for a high school for quite some time. And while I was doing that, because I found a little hole in my schedule, I decided to open up a yoga studio. It was the worst experience of my life. That's a story for another time. So I had this unique sort of combination of performance and production, education, and personal development all rolled into one. When I immigrated to the US about 5 years ago, I started to really dive into focusing only on working with people who have big messages and speakers and performers on that side. And now I've decided to sort of pull back the curtain. Being Unapologetic was the first big step of me pulling back the curtain on my own life, because I've spent my whole life thinking, who wants to hear my story? Why is my story important? Lo and behold, I mean, the book went #1 in 8 countries and #2 in 2 others. A few people want to hear my story. So, and then I added the TEDx talk was the next piece of the whole ecosystem of really putting myself out there to empower other young people to celebrate themselves more. And that's what I'm really all about.
I love that. We are always telling students, let's use the positive side of social media to tell your story. And it's not about bragging. For everybody that's listening and watching right now, it's about, you can be telling, hey, I love music. sports, volunteering, whatever that is, whatever that story is, right? Okay, let's dive into your story. David, you say there's 5 simple and practical ways to improve your mental wellness. You say first, one of the best tips to start with is listen with your eyes and your heart. Can you bring us up to speed on what does that mean?
Yeah, I've noticed in my own experience that oftentimes what you're hearing from somebody else isn't always the full picture. And especially working with high school students, frankly, you often hear not a lot
Yeah.
when you're working with teens or before teens, right? Younger than teens. So we know that nonverbal communication has big influence. Up to 55% is body language, and up to maybe about 38% or so, the studies have shown, is the tone of voice.
Mhm.
Now, here's the thing. It does take a lot of courage and the willingness to, I like to say, be unafraid to learn how to communicate with each other in a way that will allow you to unleash the best in each other. So what does this actually mean? So I'll tell you a little bit of a story of how to learn how to communicate with each other. And communication, the way we communicate, is tied to our values. And this is where a lot of people miss the boat. So
Mm.
this is the story. I share a different aspect of this story in my TEDx talk, the story of Levi and his father, Robert Bloom. So Levi is a young kid, very remarkable young man, and his parents are also very remarkable people. His parents would say things like, "We're going to go to the park on Sunday or Saturday at 10 a.m., or we're going to go have dinner at your favorite place on this day at this time." Well, Saturday would roll around, something would come up, and the park never happened, or the restaurant didn't happen. So Levi read that as his parents not respecting him.
Mm.
So they didn't say anything about it, but that's how he read it. So the thing is that for him, he valued stability and structure in his values and personality. His parents valued freedom. His
Mhm.
parents valued flexibility.
Mhm.
They never had this conversation. Now, lo and behold, Levi became very introspective. He was like the classic bullied child. And they didn't understand what was wrong with him until his parents did a bit of personal development and started to figure out what his values were, that he valued stability and structure and timing and all of this stuff. Well, they changed their ways, and all of a sudden, Levi became a bright light in their family once again.
Wow.
So that's why I say you got to listen with your eyes and with your heart, pay attention, use your intuition. Don't always assume something is wrong just by what people are saying. Be present with your younger ones or your colleagues or your family or whatever, and pay attention to the nonverbal cues.
Oh, that's so powerful. What a good story, too. I think we all learn with stories a little bit better. And so thank you for that. Okay. So listen with your eyes and your heart. Your next tip that you share with us is teaching your younger ones how to express themselves through stories, which is so fitting about my comment just now. How can we do that better? And why is that so important?
So I discovered this by accident. Again, as a head of a high school music department, I started to notice, again, this is actually a story I share in my TEDx talk. I put all my best stories in my TEDx talk because I think that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I started to notice after a couple years of teaching, my musicians weren't getting better. So I thought, I'm a good musician. I know what I'm doing. Why aren't they getting better? And I started to notice a trend. On Mondays in particular, with my kids, with my ninth graders, I would ask them, how was your weekend? And the answers were like non-existent. It was like, yeah, it was good. I'd ask them to describe things and there was no expression. So we started to play this game where what I would get them to really learn how to express themselves with their words and to share how delicious their dinner was and to express colors. Well, to my surprise, all of a sudden they started to get better at playing their instruments. And I thought maybe this is a coincidence. I went on to do this year after year after year, and the results were always the same. The more time I spent with my students to teach them how to express themselves, the better musicians they became. So it's really important to teach our younger ones to be able to express themselves because it spills over. Feelings are confusing. Learning how to express feelings so that other people can respond, it builds confidence. And
Yep.
we both know confidence is really the foundation of a lot of other great things that happen for kids.
That's great. Um, I think it's so powerful too. And then they're also more open and vulnerable in sharing with you because yeah, I think
Right.
that's really powerful.
And they also start to see that other people are like them. So, for example, I lived in a community that slowly started to have more and more immigration. It went from very, very the same to very much not the same in only a couple of years. And so in particular, my kids who were immigrants didn't necessarily want to share. Like literally, this is a real story. One kid we found out had 75 people over for dinner the night before.
Wow.
And we're like, are you kidding me? Was it like a bar mitzvah? Was it a communion? What was going on? He's like, no, that's just normal. Like I've like 75 cousins and this is just what it is.
Wow.
But he didn't want to share that because he thought it was weird. Well, lo and behold, all the other kids in the class thought it was the coolest thing ever. And eventually he had 100 people over because all the kids wanted to see this and all the food that was involved and the culture, right? It was super cool. And so he got confidence knowing he's like, oh, I don't have to hide this. Like other people think this is cool.
Yeah. Being proud of who he is.
Yeah.
And who we are is cool. That's awesome. All right. Your next tip. This is great, by the way. I really appreciate your stories and these helpful tips. Being unselfish, focus out. What does that mean?
So I just watched the newest animated feature, Klaus. And my favorite line in that movie is, a true selfless act always sparks another. Mm-hmm. So we as humans, I think it's just part of our nature, we get stuck in our heads. And when we do, we start to create these stories in our heads. Especially, this with social media, it's an interesting component in all of this. We think we're focusing outward because we're putting everything, like our latest, greatest selfie after the 17th try on social media, and that we're focusing outward, but we're not actually. What social media does is it causes us to reinforce the stories that we're not good enough or that we don't have enough likes or all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. So what if, instead, as the great Lisa Nichols from The Secret says, you woke up and liked yourself today. Mm-hmm. And you said to yourself, your like is extra. My job is to like me first. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So then it starts to matter less what everybody else thinks. So now here's the piece about service. Service is like magic. Being of service, when you put your focus outward, mm-hmm. you're too busy to get wrapped up in your own stories because you're trying to solve problems that will help other people. Mm-hmm. So I really encourage people to to look outward. Who needs your help? What can you do for other people? Whether it's in your classroom, in your household, in your community, when you're finding yourself being stuck in your head or being stuck on social media, go out into the world and do something good for other people. When in doubt, focus out. It works every time.
I love that. When in doubt, focus out. And I like how you say, like yourself first. For every educator, parent who's watching this, 99% of the people watching this have been on an airplane before. What is the thing that, David, what is the thing that the flight attendant will say to us when they say, if oxygen is no longer in the cabin, if we lose pressure?
Well, thank you for asking, because I was a flight attendant for 3 years, actually.
Were you really?
I sure was, for 2 different airlines. Air Canada was one of them.
And, of course, perfect. Yeah, it's on brand.
Of course, right?
Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
This is hilarious. I love it.
Absolutely, you want to put your own oxygen mask first before you assist your younger ones or other people, because you're not going to make it otherwise.
Yeah, you're not going to make it. And I have a background in aviation, and when we're up at a certain height and we lose that oxygen, you're going to be so stressed about helping people that you can save way more lives when we are taking care of ourselves. We kind of have to start and make sure we are happy, we are healthy, we're going to be able to reach, like what you just said, that you can't actually spark amazing things in other people without first taking a little bit care. And it is not selfish to have some self-care.
Exactly.
First of all, educators, parents, if you're listening to this right now, it is awesome if you take whether that's a massage or whether that's putting your phone down and going or having ice cream, whatever that is, like having some fun so that you can do that. Because I love the way they say that is put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. David, we're going to be best friends because I had no idea you were a flight attendant. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I want to say too, what's interesting with the oxygen mask, I would almost say, especially with the work that you're doing, getting off of social media or reframing how you show up on social media is you putting your oxygen mask on first. Because oftentimes the people who get addicted to social media or who use it in a bad way, it's sucking your oxygen away from you. Because you're waiting for the likes, you're waiting for the comments, you're waiting for the validation. What are you waiting for? You have everything you need. You're a miracle, no matter which way you look at it. So put your own oxygen on first. Put the phone down, go out, talk to your kids, talk to your students, talk to the person sitting but beside you on the plane. And you're going to see that like we all want the same things, and great things happen when you focus outward.
This is a little bit of a selfish plug for a nonprofit that's awesome. My friend Adam and I started something called the Be Free Challenge. Be free to go outside, and it's a text message challenge for kids. It's a 7-day challenge to just delete Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. But I'm gonna tie it in with you, right? Be it focus out, go outside, and it really changes a student. It roots for them and says, hey, we're rooting for you to delete this just for a week and then jump back on. And that's kind of like putting your oxygen mask on and breathing new life into who we are.
Yep.
Man, that's powerful. Okay. So you talk in your next tip. That was great. Be unselfish, focus out. When in doubt. I like that. When in doubt. I'm writing that down. When in doubt.
Focus out.
Focus out. Okay. David, you're amazing. Okay. Focus on what you love is your next tip, and what you'd love to see more of. Tell us a story about what that means.
Okay, so they say what you focus on expands. So if that's true, then why do we spend so much time focused on what we don't want? So let's take school as an example. All day long, students are assessed and evaluated, right? And often simply by the design of education system, we're not blaming teachers or anything in this, because I was a teacher, I have the utmost respect. But the fact is, when you assess and evaluate, we have to focus on the things that we miss, the mistakes that we make, and figure out how to make up the deficits, right?
Yeah.
That's what education is about.
Yeah.
So when I was learning how to become a teacher, when I was doing my teaching degree at the University of Toronto, Dr. Mary Beatty, brilliant professor, she gave us a challenge. The challenge was that we had to give feedback on student presentations using only positive language.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that's hard. And that's what you do. Focus on what you love and what you'd love to see more of. So focus on the positive behaviors and reinforce those. Focus on the things that are working, because there's always something working. Give praise to those things specifically and be specific. I love it when you hold the door open for me instead of, thank you, you're so polite. Like, we got to be specific with our kids about what is actually working. And when you focus on the things that you love, now you can still give feedback and say, I'd love to see a little bit more of this. So that's where we can make up the deficit, but we're not focusing on what didn't work, because how is focusing on what didn't work going to actually help us? Right? It causes us to go into our stories then, and it's just a problem, right? So when we focus on the things that are working, then we know what's working, and we know that we can tweak those things to improve them.
Yeah. I used to work for a best-selling HR author, and he used to say that in schools, what we're doing is we're trying to turn the D's into A's, right? Or if we're in a certain class. And he said, why don't we just take the B's? It's so easy to turn a B into an A, because that's our strength. We naturally are good at it. And turn the D's into maybe B minuses, C pluses, because we don't have to be, and I know this is different than education. All the kids need to do great. Yeah, you're right. But in the real world, we focus on those strengths and we feel great. We might even improve in those areas just by saying, you're really gifted here.
Right.
How do we use that? Go up. It's going to be easy to hit an A because you're naturally at a B plus. And then let's work a little bit on this area here so it's not a D. Let's get it to something else. But that's kind of what you're hitting at there.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah, and we don't go out and get a job at something we're not good at.
Yeah.
And yet in school, oftentimes, again, it's just the way the system works. I get it. We're trying to make people well-rounded and all of that, right? But it's kind of bizarre. Like, if I went and got a job of something that I couldn't do at all, I would be absolutely miserable. My mental wellness would be a 0.
Yeah.
And yet we do that in school. We put these kids, calculus for me. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, all I wanted to know from my teacher, my calculus teachers, how do I use this in the real world? That's all I wanted to know. And he's like, never mind, just do it. And I was like, I couldn't process it, you know?
Yeah, I agree. But I do also love the highlighting, especially on the behaviors, because let's say it's outside of the classroom. Hey, you're great at this. And, just a little side note, body image. This could be great for, hey, you have great hair, or you just complimenting a student on something they have. Hey, those curls that you have, because it could be a girl that goes, my hair isn't as straight as hers. I can't. Hey, you've got beautiful, whatever that is, like, highlight that feature, use the specificity that you just mentioned. And that might Oprah says that when she was 12, I could be wrong on this, somebody of great importance just out of the crowd complimented her on something, and she said it changed her life. And that moment, that person said, "You're really good at this." It was like a senator or somebody. I'm getting the story wrong, but it's accurate in that changed her life, and now one of the most powerful women in the world, right? And that little specific compliment that Oprah received at that young age, 11, 12, 13,
you know
whatever
what's
it
funny?
was,
And
right?
case in point, like what saved my life was a couple of teachers, not even the music teachers, when I was in high school. They said to me, I wanted to be in the musical. The first time around, they said, "That's nice. You're going to be the musical director." And I said, "I don't know what that means." And they're like, "That's okay. We got you." The second time around, when I was in my senior year, I said, "I just want to be in the musical. I'm graduating. I just want to have some fun, sing and dance." And they're like, "That's nice. You're going to write the musical." And I was like, "I don't know how to write a musical." They're like, "We got you." And several months later, I found myself a published Canadian composer.
That's amazing.
Changed my life. Now, I'm not the most powerful woman in the world, or man, but you know, I'm getting there. I'm working on it. But you're so right. Like those little things, it was free for them to do that, for them to say, "You're talented as a musician. You are more talented than just a performer. We see that in you. This is what you need to do."
And we're going to stretch you in your strengths. We're going to push you. And I love that in a positive way, right?
Yes. Yep.
That's really terrific. All right. We're on to your last technique, your suggestion. Consider comparing less and celebrate more. Tell us a story about that.
Okay, so I've spent my entire life struggling with studying and overcoming what I've come to call comparanoia.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what my TEDx talk is about. And comparanoia is the desire to be like or unlike anybody else. Now, that's the key. It's not just about comparing ourselves to others.
Mm-hmm.
It's also our desire to be unique that is part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So being unique or thinking that we're different isolates us. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
spent my entire life thinking that I didn't fit in, that I was ostracized, that I was, just different. And then something happened and I realized maybe I'm just as special as everybody else. And once again, because my classroom was my testing grounds, although the kids didn't know it at the time, I started to experiment with this. And again, I shared this story in my TEDx talk, so you can hear the more expanded version of this there. I would tell kids, like, the good news is you're not that special. The even better news is you're just as special as everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so now all of a sudden we're on a common ground. So what if we celebrated the fact that we're just as special as everybody else? Now we have to deal with the second problem, the celebration issue. Because I don't know about you, Josh, but for me, when I was growing up, celebration was birthdays, maybe graduation, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what it was for,
Yeah.
right? And everybody smiled for the pictures, and you better smile because we don't want to ruin the pictures because we only had one shot back then with the old cameras, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought, well, what if we redefine celebration to include more options? So what if we include celebration to mean words of appreciation, acknowledging your own awareness?
Mm-hmm.
My personal favorite, what we call astitude, which is literally just shaking your hips around. I learned this from Joseph McClendon III. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. And it's literally impossible not to change the way you feel when you move your hips around. Even in your own chair, it's impossible. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
So what if you started to celebrate the things that happen in your life, the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Mm-hmm.
And now from that, I've created this whole I celebrate matrix to show people thousands of different ways and combinations of how to celebrate themselves.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing that it's important to remember. I say compare less. Comparanoia will never fully go away. It's part of our human condition. We are wired to look at other people because we are just as special as everybody else. We want what other people have. We want to be loved. We want to be liked. We all want the same kinds of things. So we don't want it to go away completely. We can't make it go away completely, but we can start to compare less and have more on the celebration side of the scale than the comparing side of the scale. And it is incredibly powerful. It has completely, radically changed my life and the lives of everyone that I've taught it to, all of my students, all of my clients. When they celebrate, and bad things will happen. So I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, newer in his coaching journey, took on a client for $200 a month. And he called me and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm so mad at myself. I can't believe I took on a client. I'm doing like all these calls with them and all this time, $200 a month. Was I drunk?" And I said to him, "Are you celebrating?" So what is there to celebrate in this? He said, I'm disgusted at myself. And I said, and are you celebrating? And he said, why would I celebrate? Are you ever going to take on another client for $200 a month? And he said, absolutely not. I said, and are you celebrating that? And he was like, I got it.
Yeah.
You see, there's always something to celebrate, always, because your awareness is powerful. We don't learn when we just ace it all the time.
Yeah.
We learn when we fail. And so I think you should celebrate your failures because there's so much more learning in the failures.
It's so true. And we teach students a lot in our speeches, David, that as we're applying to college and university, internships and everywhere else, they want us to be ourselves. But they want us to show examples of positivity and gratitude. And that gratitude is you celebrating, in my opinion. It's like, hey, I'm grateful because this could have gone this direction, or it taught me this, or I got a free master's in business administration with learning that $200 thing. Guys, let me tell you why I would never do that, because I was losing money. And also it makes us so vulnerable. We can share that story with others and go, I used to charge this, now I charge this because I know what my self-worth is and stuff. So couldn't agree more in what you're saying. And I love that approach, celebrating.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate.
And it's so simple, right? I wanted to create something that was so simple that you don't need anything. You don't need to think. Like Mel Robbins' 5-second rule is brilliant. I'm like, really? Mel Robbins built an empire on counting down from 5? But it's so simple. It's sticky, right? And so I'm like, well, celebration is easy. You can do it as long as you can reframe what you think celebration is. You're able to overcome what I've called this comparanoia issue, which is, of course, social media really pushes us into comparanoia because everybody else has got more, does more, whatever, right? But celebration is truly the answer. And I use social media, actually, that's a sort of a side tip to this. I use social media as a celebration portal. I celebrate other people. I celebrate achievements. I celebrate when things go wrong all the time. And I'm just being real on my social media. And I think people really appreciate that they know that they're not going to get a slice of my life that is the fake slice. They're getting just David. That's David sharing what he's sharing.
Yeah, I love that. And I told you before this call, before this interview, my professional role with you is to be your cheerleader. I've got pom-poms celebrating you, highlighting all the work that you've learned and done and created and stuff. And so that's awesome. It's another version of that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I celebrate you.
we can root for people. We can celebrate them. And that's what we're doing really in this interview is we're rooting for students.
Yes.
How can we let that student really learn who they are, those strengths? It could be music, could be theater, it could be sports, it could be volunteer work, it could be anything. How do we let them learn that in middle school, maybe earlier, and create that at Smart Social? We build a private portfolio with that student and ask them, what are the 3 things you stand for, you're doing? And that some students, it's Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. Some students, it's I volunteer at this hospital. Some students, it's I do this, I play, I track and field, whatever that is. Those 3 things then build in, hey, I'm kind of good at these things. Or I don't like this one anymore, but I did that for a few years. I'll leave it on there and I'm going to move into these 2. And we really want to teach students your activities, where you spend your time is either where you're good at, what you like, and then we can turn that into a skill in the future. So important. Yeah, David, I want to leave you with last word. What would you tell parents or students or educators on how they can inspire students to maybe compare themselves in a more healthy way so they can celebrate their skills?
Well, I think it really comes down to that core belief that I have is that you got to remember, we're all just as special as everybody else. And to remove the fact that we're different, because on the inside, we're all the same. And like I said, whether you look at it from a God perspective, a universe perspective, or a unicorn perspective, we're all miracles, or science even. We're all miracles. And that's pretty cool. Like what we can do is amazing. Elon Musk sending people up to Mars. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's cool, right? And so if we're just as special as everybody else, well, what can we do if we band together? And that's the piece. Celebration is so much more powerful when we celebrate together. So find ways to find the commonalities in each other instead of the differences and celebrate those things.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think teachers that are listening to this right now, educators are probably thinking, how can I do that in my classroom? And there's probably so many examples of breaking down those barriers about a student that says, hey, I have 100 people or 75 people over at an event. And, all these different things make us so cool and we can include each other in that. I love it. Hey, David, thank you so much for joining us here today. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Those of you that are listening and watching, you can learn more about smartsocial.com by clicking the links below. Also, what's very important is David's link to his landing page is below. Being Unapologetic, the book can be found there. You can click on that and go to him to learn more about what he's doing. You can also watch his TEDx talk below. So important. Take a look at it. You can even listen to it on audio there as well. I'm Josh Oakes with smartsocial.com, teaching your kids really how to be safe on social media so someday they can use these tools to shine online. Our hidden agenda is that your kid gets an awesome job that they love, a career. And to do that, we keep them safe, mental health, make sure they're happy online. Teach them how to Google themselves so that it's not you being the bad person, mom and dad, saying, don't put that out there. It's out there forever. We want them to understand that through stories that Google will tell them. Building a portfolio in middle school so they know their skills and that they can control their future, and what they do online is positive. Launching it in high school so that all of a sudden they have positive Google results and that they know what they stand for, and they can be social and fun online and use these tools in a way to shine online. Thank you so much for everybody that's watching this, listening to this. Please rate, subscribe, and review. And I'm thankful for all of you for celebrating us and keeping kids safe, and to David for all that he's doing. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Remember to keep it light, bright, and polite, because your kids are watching what you're doing online. We'll see all of you very soon. Have a great day.